You've probably been stuck at a railroad crossing at some point, sitting in your car watching a freight train crawl by, counting the cars out of boredom. And you probably thought, yeah, that's a big train. But you've never seen anything like what Union Pacific built. They put a locomotive on the tracks that was so hot it cooked birds out of the sky. So loud that entire cities in California refused to let it pass through. And so heavy, it cracked the pavement underneath it. That was only one of 5 monsters they unleashed on this country. So Union Pacific had a problem. A big, rocky, snow-covered problem called the Wasatch Mountains in Utah. This stretch of track between Ogden and Green River, Wyoming climbed at a grade of 1.14% for 65 miles straight. That sounds gentle until you picture what it actually means. You're dragging thousands of tons of steel, coal, and cargo up a hill that never levels out. The engines would scream, the metal would groan, and sometimes the train would just stop, dead on the mountain, blocking the entire line, crew sitting there waiting for a second locomotive to come rescue them. In the 1930s, this was Union Pacific's daily nightmare. They had to double up engines, which meant 2 locomotives, 2 crews, double the coal, double the cost, just to get one train over the hill. And sometimes even that wasn't enough. Trains would stall mid-grade, wheels spinning on the rails, sparks flying, engineers watching the pressure gauges drop and knowing they were stuck. Every hour a train sat on that mountain was money bleeding out of the company and freight rotting in the cars behind it. So Union Pacific did what Union Pacific always does. They looked at the mountain and said, we're going to build something so powerful it makes this grade feel like a parking lot. That obsession with raw, stupid, overwhelming power would define this railroad for the next 30 years and produce machines that engineers today still can't believe were real. The first attempt at solving the mountain problem arrived in 1936, and it was anything but subtle. Union Pacific teamed up with the American Locomotive Company and created the Challenger, a locomotive with a 4-6-6 four-wheel arrangement, which basically means they welded 2 complete engines under one enormous boiler. The result was a machine that stretched 122 feet long, weighed over 1 million pounds, and looked like it wanted to fight you in a parking lot. Union Pacific ordered 105 of these between 1936 and 1943. The man behind the design was Otto Jabelmann, the railroad's chief mechanical engineer, a guy who woke up every morning and chose violence against the laws of physics. His Challengers could hit 70 miles per hour hauling freight. Think about that for a second. 1 million pounds doing highway speed through mountain passes. The pulling force on these things was 97,350 pounds of tractive effort. A modern pickup truck produces maybe 500. These were pulling with the force of almost 200 trucks lashed together. But the early Challengers had a problem. They struggled on the steepest parts of the Wasatch grade. They were fast on flat track, but the mountains still humbled them. So Jabelmann went back to the drawing board, took everything he learned from an even bigger locomotive we'll get to in a minute, and redesigned the Challengers to be heavier, longer, and meaner. The final batch came out 10 feet longer than the originals, just in time for World War II. These upgraded monsters spent the war hauling tanks, ammunition, and military supplies across the western United States at speeds that would make a modern freight train jealous. Only 2 survive today out of 105. Number 3985 ran excursion trips until 2010 and once pulled a 143-car double-stack train by itself. It even hauled the Ringling Brothers circus train from Cheyenne to Denver, because nothing's more American than a 1 million-pound locomotive dragging a circus across the Rocky Mountains. A nonprofit took ownership in 2022 and is working to bring it back to life. The idea that this thing could breathe fire again is honestly kind of beautiful. While the Challengers were slugging through freight duty, Union Pacific needed a speedster. Enter Locomotive 844, a 484 Northern type, delivered in December 1944 as the absolute last steam locomotive Union Pacific would ever receive. And here's the part that gives me chills. This locomotive has never been retired. Not once. Not ever. Over 80 years on the active roster, making it the only steam locomotive in America that a major railroad simply refused to let go of. When 844 first hit the rails, it was pulling glamorous passenger trains like the Overland Limited and the Portland Rose. These Northerns were designed for 90 miles per hour, but the engineers who drove them didn't care about the speed rating. Reports from the 1940s describe these locomotives blowing past 100, sometimes touching 120 miles per hour, on steam. In the 1940s, 1 million pounds of iron and fire going faster than most people drive on a highway today. That's genuinely terrifying. Then diesel showed up, and steam started dying. By 1959, railroad companies across America were cutting up their steam engines for scrap metal. Entire fleets gone. Locomotives that won wars, that hauled soldiers home, that carried a nation's freight through the Great Depression, melted down and turned into bridge beams and car parts. Hundreds of engines, each somebody's life work, reduced to a pile of recycled steel. It was an industrial massacre happening in every rail yard in the country. But when the scrapping crews came for 844, someone at Union Pacific said no, they saved it. In 1960, the railroad put it into excursion service, and this locomotive has been their goodwill ambassador ever since, appearing at the 1984 World's Fair, the opening of the California State Railroad Museum, and dozens of other events. There was a brief identity crisis between 1962 and 1989 when a diesel stole its number and they had to call it 8444. Once that diesel retired, 844 got its name back. Even diesel locomotives eventually get out of this locomotive's way. This is the one, the big boy, the name that makes grown men show up to railroad crossings with lawn chairs and coolers. The name that still trends on social media every time Union Pacific fires one up. The funniest part is how it got the name. These locomotives were supposed to be called the Wasatch class. Very professional, very dignified. But a worker at the American Locomotive Company grabbed a piece of chalk and wrote Big Boy on the front of the boiler before it was finished. That was that. The most famous steam locomotive in history got named like a high school prank. Only 25 Big Boys were ever built between 1941 and 1944. They used a 488 four-wheel arrangement found on no other locomotive in history. 133 feet long, 1.2 million pounds, over 6,000 horsepower. They could drag a 3,600-ton freight train up the Wasatch grade completely alone. Before the Big Boy, that job required multiple engines and a prayer. The Big Boy just ate the mountain for breakfast and cruised over the top at 60 miles per hour without breaking a sweat. The firebox alone was about 150 square feet, roughly the size of a studio apartment, except this apartment was a raging inferno fed by an automatic stoker shoveling 12.5 tons of coal per hour. That's a full dump truck of coal disappearing into flames every 60 minutes. The heat was so intense that firemen working near the cab in summer had to rotate out constantly or risk collapsing. Water for the boiler was pumped in at a rate of over 12,000 gallons per hour. These machines consumed resources the way a small town does, just to keep moving forward. The Big Boys hauled freight until 1959, and the last revenue run by any Big Boy ended early in the morning on July 21st of that year. After that, silence. These titans were parked, the fires went cold, and the most powerful steam locomotives ever built were slowly forgotten. But then something happened that nobody expected. 8 Big Boys had survived the scrapyard, scattered across museums around the country, sitting in rain and snow for decades. In 2013, Union Pacific went to a museum in Pomona, California, and took number 4014 back. They chose this one because the California sun had been kinder to it than Wyoming winters had been to others. They hauled it 1,390 miles back to Cheyenne and tore it apart down to the bare frame. A 9-person crew spent years rebuilding every pipe, every joint, every rivet. They had to lift the 250-ton boiler with 2 massive cranes to reconnect the front and rear engines. They converted the whole thing from coal to oil, and on May 1st, 2019, Big Boy 4014 moved under its own power for the first time in almost 60 years. I want you to sit with that for a second. A machine that was built during a world war that hauled the country's freight through the most brutal mountains in America, it sat dead and rusting in a museum parking lot for over half a century while the world moved on without it, came back to life. A team of 9 people, including 2 old-school Boilermakers who had to relearn skills from the last century. spent years bringing this thing back from the dead. Over 1 million people lined the tracks to watch it run from Cheyenne to Ogden alongside Locomotive 844. Two steam legends, shoulder to shoulder, doing the same rails their ancestors burned through during World War II. In 2026, Big Boy 4014 is doing a coast-to-coast tour for America's 250th birthday. This thing went from a museum piece to a national treasure and earned every mile of that comeback. After steam died, most railroads moved on. Union Pacific, however, didn't. In 1969, they took delivery of the DDA 40X, nicknamed the Centennial because the first unit rolled out just in time for the 100th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. These were diesel electrics, and they still hold the record as the most powerful diesel locomotive ever built on a single frame. Nobody's beaten it in over 50 years. Then again, nobody's even tried. Each Centennial carried two massive diesel engines inside a single body, producing a combined 6,600 horsepower. 47 of them were built exclusively for Union Pacific by EMD between 1969 and 1971. One Centennial replaced 2 or 3 normal diesel locomotives, which meant fewer crews, fewer paychecks, and more money in Union Pacific's pocket. They could haul heavy freight at 70 miles per hour across the entire western United States. But the same thing that made them great also made them a nightmare. Everything was oversized. Everything was custom. And when something broke, you couldn't just call up a parts catalog. The electrical system was actually brilliant, using modular components that made troubleshooting easier, and EMD liked it so much they put it in every locomotive they built after that. But maintaining these giants still cost more than just running 2 smaller engines. Union Pacific started shelving them in the early 1980s, brought 25 back when business boomed in 1984, then retired them all by 1986. One of them, number 6903, rear-ended another train on Cajon Pass in 1974, and a crewman was killed. The locomotive was so mangled they scrapped it on the spot rather than haul it back to a shop. That's how violent things got when something went wrong at this scale. But here's the redemption. 12 Centennials survive in museums. Number 6936 ran excursion trips for Union Pacific until 2022. A nonprofit got it running again in 2023. The most powerful single-frame diesel locomotive in history is alive and rolling. That fact alone proves that some machines are just too stubborn to stay dead. Everything we've talked about so far, the Challengers, the Northerns, the Big Boys, the Centennials, all of that was a warm-up. Because the most insane thing Union Pacific ever put on rails was the gas turbine electric locomotive, called by every crew that ever ran one the Big Blow. These weren't diesel, and they weren't steam either. These were jet engines bolted to train wheels, and they remain the most powerful locomotives ever built in America. Nothing has topped them since, and nothing probably ever will. After World War II, General Electric had gotten very good at building turbines for military aircraft. Union Pacific looked at that technology and had an idea that sounded absolutely reckless. Let's put one of these things on a train. The first prototype showed up in 1948, and it actually worked. Union Pacific ordered a fleet. The first generation produced 4,500 horsepower each, already 4 times more powerful than a typical diesel of the era. 10 were delivered starting in 1952, and they immediately started hauling freight between Ogden and Council Bluffs. Then Union Pacific did what Union Pacific does. They wanted more. In 1955, they ordered the 3rd generation, and this is where sanity completely left the building. Each unit was a 3-piece beast, an A-unit cab with a small diesel engine for creeping through rail yards, a B unit carrying the actual gas turbine, and a fuel tender hauling 24,000 gallons of heavy oil. The turbine cranked out 8,500 horsepower. These things generated 240,000 pounds of starting tractive effort. A Big Boy, the largest steam locomotive ever, produced about 135,000. The Big Blow nearly doubled it. 30 were built. Within 1 year, they were moving over 10% of all Union Pacific freight. Just 30 machines doing the work of hundreds. Each one logged 8,000 miles and 400 hours every month and stayed available about 80% of the time. Every single unit racked up over 1 million miles before retirement. But here's where it gets terrifying. The turbine burned fuel at 1400 degrees inside the combustion chamber. Exhaust screamed out of the vents at 150 miles per hour, hitting temperatures of 850 degrees. You didn't hear a big blow coming, you felt it. The rumble in your chest, the vibration in your teeth, and then this shrieking wail that drowned out everything else for a quarter mile in every direction. Crews had to use the auxiliary diesel just to move the locomotive through the yard because firing up the turbine near the maintenance buildings would have deafened everyone on shift. Cities in Southern California flat out banned them. The heat from the exhaust was reported to soften asphalt, and the noise complaints were relentless. They ran on Bunker C fuel oil, the cheapest sludge left over from petroleum refining. It had to be heated to 200 degrees before the engine could even burn it. But it was so cheap that the turbines actually cost less to run than diesel. Steam costs $145 per 1,000 gross ton miles. Diesel cost $84. The turbines cost just $69. For a while, Union Pacific had cracked the code. The most powerful locomotive in America was also the cheapest to operate. Then the plastics industry figured out that Bunker C was useful for making plastic products. The price skyrocketed, and overnight, the cheapest fuel in railroading became expensive. Reliability problems stacked up too, with dirty fuel fouling the turbine blades and eating away at the internals. Union Pacific retired the last two big blows in February 1970 and sent almost all of them to the scrapyard. Only two survived. Number 18 sits at the Illinois Railway Museum. Number 26 sits at the Ogden Museum in Utah. Both got cosmetic restorations, but they were stripped of too many parts before anyone thought to save them. They'll never run again. You can walk up to them, touch the cold metal, and try to imagine what it felt like when 8,500 horsepower was screaming through the frame. The fire's gone. The most powerful locomotives America ever built are now quiet shells in museum halls. That silence might be the saddest part of this whole story. Union Pacific even tried to save the concept by building a coal-burning turbine in 1962, Frankenstein together from scrapped locomotive parts. It made 7,000 horsepower and stretched 226 feet, the longest locomotive ever built. But grinding coal fine enough not to destroy the turbine blades was impossible, and the whole experiment was abandoned after 20 months and fewer than 10,000 miles. Some ideas are just too wild, even for Union Pacific.